Max Verstappen has undoubtedly had one of the best careers in F1 thus far, amassing 4 world championships, 69 wins, and 125 podiums over the course of 11 seasons. But by dissecting each one of those seasons individually, there's so much more to look at. And that got me thinking, which season of Max Verstappen's is the best? So I went ahead and ranked all of his seasons in F1 so far from worst to best. One quick disclaimer, this is going to be recorded prior to the Qatar GP weekend, and even though the season isn't over, I am still going to include the 2025 season. For all I know, Max Verstappen could win this year's championship, and Lando Norris can also equally seal the deal in the coming days. So if something massive happens during the race that'll change the ranking of 2025, don't blame me quite yet. Now first comes 2017 season, and the truth is, Max Verstappen hasn't had a bad season per se, but this one is probably the worst. 2017 was Verstappen's first full year in the Red Bull team, as the year prior, he'd only taken for Daniel Kvyat from Spain onwards, and consequently, it was one of only 2 seasons in Verstappen's career where he scored less points than his teammate. This isn't saying it as a bad thing, but in terms of Verstappen's stats, it is an outlier. He still managed to win 2 races in 2017 and ended P6 in the driver's standings, 32 behind his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, and Red Bull finished P3 in the constructors. He did have some trouble early in the year as the Red Bull car was pretty unreliable, and Verstappen had a personal record of 7 DNFs throughout the season, and to this day, the ending of P6 is the lowest result he has had to date in his time at Red Bull. After that comes his rookie year in 2015. Once again, this isn't necessarily a bad season, just worse than the others by Verstappen standards. 2015 was Verstappen's only full season at Toro Rosso, as they went for a double rookie lineup with Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, while Verstappen was just 17 years of age. He had some trouble to start the season with an engine failure on his debut in Australia, but he bounced back and became the youngest point scorer in F1 history the next race out in Malaysia. Throughout the season, he accumulated more points and finished the championship in 12th with 49 points, comfortably ahead of Sainz, who only had 18, and proved himself to be quite the commodity around the Red Bull camp and gave him a leg up in becoming the next driver for the Red Bull senior team in the near future. Nothing insanely good this year, but what can you expect from a 17-year-old rookie who still beat his teammate and consistently scored points when the car made it to the end of the race? Next is from another similar time frame, and that's 2018. 2018 was a big step up for Verstappen, and the final year he would be alongside Daniel Ricciardo, and he left that rivalry on top. This was the first and only year Verstappen topped Ricciardo, and in a 21 race season, he managed 2 wins, 11 podiums, and a P4 in the championship, managing to finish ahead of Valtteri Bottas in a Mercedes and only 2 points back from Kimi Räikkönen, when the championship was dominantly in favor of both Mercedes and Ferrari. The reason this ranks lower is due to a much slower start from Verstappen, starting the season out with some below-average performances for him, but he closed out the season finishing top 5 in 10 of the last 11 races, with the only exception being a loss of power resulting in DNF in Hungary. Overall, a really strong campaign, and a shift towards the Red Bull Verstappen-focused era. Now the next entry is the first in the current decade, and that's 2020. 2020 was a weird, shortened season due to COVID, and similar to 2018, Verstappen managed 2 wins and 11 podiums, but this time in a season with 4 less Grand Prix. Verstappen was a regular on the podium, with him only finishing off of the podium on 1 occurrence in Turkey, as the rest of the times he wasn't there, he just didn't finish the race. But in general, it's hard to justify what more he could have done considering how dominant the Mercedes was during this time, but it is also up against championship campaigns, so it falls in a weird middle ground. Regardless, 2020 would be the most recent year to date where Verstappen would be in a non-championship contending position, and therefore, he only really goes up from there. Next is 2016, and it is a little bit of a rogue one to put this high on the list, but hear me out first. 2016 was the other year I was referring to when Verstappen was beaten by his teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, but it was a little bit of an asterisk this time around. Verstappen started out the year with Toro Rosso, and as we all know, he got promoted to Red Bull at the 5th GP of the season in Spain at the expense of Daniel Kvyat, and he won his first race with the team when Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton took each other out. It was both lucky and skillful, but it marked the first win of Verstappen's career at only the age of 18, and more than anything, it was a big tone setter in his career. At just 18 years old, he finished 5th in the championship, 52 points back from Ricciardo, but like I said, you have to factor in the changing teams, and this being Verstappen's second year in the sport. A lot of adversity was challenged, and what I deem as one of the most crucial years in Verstappen's development. Now for the final non-championship contending entry on the list, and that's 2019. 2019 was a bit different for Red Bull as a whole, with Pierre Gasly starting out in the second seat in Red Bull, and it going to Alex Albon not long later, and leading to the chain reaction that's still going to this day with the second Red Bull seat. But one thing was locked in at Red Bull, and that was Max Verstappen. 2019 was another year where Lewis Hamilton dog-walked the competition, but Verstappen was best performing out of the non-Mercedes drivers. He accomplished 3 wins across the year and a third in the championship, crucially ahead of both Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. At the time, it was the best championship finishing position for Verstappen, and the saga of him demolishing teammates really began, with him ending with 278 points, while both Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon ended with 95 and 92 respectively, meaning Verstappen had more points than the other two combined. Now are the final 5, and shock, they're the most recent 5 years. Here at 5th is where it gets a bit dicey because this is 2025. Like I said, this is pre-Qatar, so for all I know, Verstappen is still level on points with Piastri and has all the momentum in the world. But it still looks to be in favor of Lando Norris. Regardless of the outcome of this year, I can describe Verstappen's 2025 with one word, and that is resilience. If you told me halfway through this year that McLaren dominated the season and Max Verstappen would be level on points with Oscar Piastri with 2 races to go, I wouldn't believe you. And chances are you wouldn't believe it either. As a matter of fact, Max Verstappen probably wouldn't even believe it, considering he said he was checked out of the championship after Zandvoort. But what a turnaround it has been. Verstappen has been consistent in clawing back, and if he does somehow pull this year off, it'll be one of the best comebacks we will ever see. But even if he doesn't, it's remarkable that it even got this close. With that being said, the final 4 are all years where Verstappen ended up with the championship title in his hands, and in my mind, 2024 was the weakest of the bunch. The year was business as usual, as Verstappen finished in the top 6 of every race in the season, except for the Australian Grand Prix, where his brakes decided to give up. The part where this year lacks a little is that the back half of the season wasn't quite as dominant as past campaigns of Verstappen. After the Spanish Grand Prix, Verstappen only won 2 of the 14 races, and it introduced Lando Norris into the championship fight, even though it wasn't really close. Verstappen still stayed consistent and scored the points he needed, but considering how dominant he was in prior years, it was a bit of a step back, mainly due to the Red Bull car not having as much of a gap to the McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari cars, looking very strong throughout the year. Still an incredible year, just up against tough competition. Out of the last 3, 2022 comes next. 2022 was the first season of the new regulations, and it saw Verstappen dominance almost instantly. There was a short period at the start of the season where it looked like Charles Leclerc had a shot to contest, but that was quickly disposed of when Verstappen won 15 of the 22 races. Some incredible performances, such as the spin-in win from P10 in Hungary, showed the levels that Verstappen had in this championship, and 2022 was the year where true dominance was established and a rift started to form between Verstappen and the rest of the grid. He won the championship by 146 points and beat his teammate Sergio Perez by 149 points. But still, he managed to outdo that on 2 other occasions. Second place has to go to 2021. Regardless of the outcome and the controversy in Abu Dhabi, you can't discredit the performance on display in 2021. The clash of titans between Verstappen and Hamilton in the first championship for Max Verstappen, a season-long battle where it was tight all the way through and Verstappen finally had the machinery, he transcended from being labeled as potential to being deemed as a champion. He had 10 wins and managed to topple the statistical GOAT of the sport, Lewis Hamilton, which is a true achievement in its own right. He still had some low moments like at Silverstone and Baku, but the overall incredible display by Verstappen showed that he could handle the pressure. He ended the championship just ahead of Lewis Hamilton and still beat Sergio Perez by over 200 points. A dominant display and an even more impressive one given the circumstances. Finally, we get to the very best season of Max Verstappen's career, and you could probably have guessed it was 2023. Verstappen broke plenty of records in 2023. Most wins in a season, highest win percentage, most consecutive wins, most podiums in a season, most points in a season, most laps led in a season, and largest ever championship winning margin. An utter masterclass by Verstappen, but even the records he broke don't share the whole story. Not a single DNF, and apart from his 19 wins, he finished second twice and fifth once. That's it. There were little to no mistakes for Verstappen, and if there were any, he did something to make up for it 10 times. It was genuinely boring to watch at times for how dominant it was to see Verstappen win. It became a routine. Turn on the race, Max goes 30 seconds ahead, and doesn't get shown on the broadcast until he crosses the checkered flag. The levels of dominance it takes to make F1 boring is crazy, and he managed to do it week in and week out. This was also the year where we all saw Verstappen mature a lot as a driver. No unnecessarily aggressive moves, no outrageous outbursts, just pure skill and talent, which makes it the best season of his F1 career, and possibly the best single season performance in all of F1.